Faith Forged in Fire, where we dive headfirst into the unique challenges and triumphs that comes with being a firefighter, all while exploring what it means to live out a biblical worldview. Join us as we find hope, perseverance, and faith in the midst of the heat and chaos. Welcome to the podcast. It's about time. We're back finally again.
Yep, vacation's over.
Vacation's over, if that's what it was.
Kind of.
So here's the problem, right? It's hard enough to stay consistent when it's one person. And then 1 week, well, I guess we can't blame it. It was Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
Fell on our recording day, and we have more important things to do than record on Valentine's Day. Yes. And then the next next recording day, I was busy with
somewhere.
Class. Pesky classes that you've got to take in the fire department. So anyway, we are finally back and had some fun stuff. We didn't get to talk about our trip up north yet, have we?
No, we haven't.
Yeah. So in up north, if you're listening from anywhere else, that's what we Michiganders call pretty much anything north of us, of wherever you are at the time.
Right.
Up north. Northern Michigan. Got to do a little EMS for some rally racing.
Up in here.
Yeah, there you go. If you're watching the video, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see.
If you're listening on a podcast, just use your imagination.
Just use your imagination.
Yeah.
And best part was Wednesday, training day or testing day. Got to test. Got to do EMS for Subaru. What an opportunity
It was.
Oh man! So
that was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
I felt like part of the team.
Yeah. I still remember where you and I are standing there.
Right.
Standing there first thing in the morning, trying to still kind of soaking it in. And all of a sudden we heard, "Morning, guys." And I turn around and there's Travis Pastrana. And we're like, well, here we go, I guess. Right.
Oh, hi. Yeah, it was great. It was fun. Kind of ruined it for the rest of the week. The rest of it was kind of boring.
It wasn't the same. We got some pretty up close and personal watching them test. That was a lot of fun. So anyways, here we are back with this, talking about this topic, kind of counting the cost. The title of our video is the truth of being a volunteer firefighter. Is it worth it? I saw this. It popped up on Facebook. You know, your feed just gives you all these suggestions. And one of them was this question, is being a firefighter worth it? And of course, in that context, they're wondering about being a volunteer firefighter. Mm-hmm. And we try to not just talk about volunteer firefighting. We want to talk about any firefighting. But in your context, in mine, we are paid on call or volunteers. Yep. So I'd like to talk about that context today, because that made me think about it. Is it worth it? What would my answer be if somebody asked? And I feel like the answer is pretty easy. But why? And then how would you ensure that it's worth it for somebody else, or how would they know what they're getting into? So then my mind went to this passage in Scripture. And if you're brand new, this is unashamedly a Christian podcast, right? We're Faith Forged in Fire. So we talk a lot about firefighting things, but we always like to tie it back to Scripture, and we learn lessons from Scripture. And my mind went to Luke chapter 14, starting in verse 28 through verse 33. And it's a parable that Jesus gives of counting the cost. And he says, "For which of you desiring to build a tower does not first sit down and count the cost, whether he has enough to complete it? Otherwise, when he has laid a foundation and is not able to finish, all who see it begin to mock him, saying, 'This man began to build and was not able to finish.' Or what king going to encounter another king in war will not sit down and deliberate whether he is able with 10,000 to meet him who comes against him with 20,000? And if not, while the other is a great way off, he sends a delegation and asks for terms of peace. So therefore, any one of you who does not renounce all that he has cannot be my disciple." And just thinking about the counting the cost. So I'm a little distracted because I can hear in the other room somebody's playing a piano. So if you hear that, I'm sorry.
Background music.
Background music. I often make this comment more as a joke, and you hear firefighters say this all the time, especially volunteers. They didn't tell me about this when they recruited me. Right.
Of course.
They didn't tell me I'd be doing this.
Right.
And if you had a certain person that recruited you, like I did, there are times when that person's name comes up, and it's not always the kindest. Like, what in the world did they get me into?
Mm-hmm.
So the question is it worth it? And I'll ask you. We call you Chief a lot because you're the resident chief. And I don't know that I'm asking, is it worth being the chief?
Well, yeah, we'll stay out of that.
But is it worth it in your career? And we've talked about especially your ups and downs here.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I feel like the answer is pretty obvious for a lot of reasons. But would you say it's worth it?
Depends on the day. Really, sometimes
Yep.
sometimes somebody'd ask you and you go like, what am I thinking? Why am I doing this? And I think that's probably any case. I mean, I've got to believe as a pastor, there's probably days that you sit at your office desk and probably want to bang your head on the desk. I'm like, well, what is going on? But, when you look at it, it's overall, it's worth it. And, and again, we're not true volunteers. I mean, there are people that do this and get
Truly
zero
for free. Yeah.
They zero pay. So, I mean, and we get compensated for it. So that probably helps, but I don't know. I don't ever remember asking, how much do I get paid to do this?
No. And I've also said this on this podcast. My fire check, I get once a year. That's how big it is. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, we get compensated for it. I guess it helps sometimes. Especially those long calls when you're sitting out on the highway forever or something like that. It helps a little bit to know that I'm at least getting paid for it. But it's not, we're not getting rich by any means. And I could not tell you, somebody asked me, one of the young guys asked me, what do we get paid? I said, I don't know. Right. I have no idea what I get paid.
Right. And before I came back as the chief, I couldn't have told you either. And the only reason I know now is because when I'm doing the NFIRS report is what I call it, and that's part of the payroll, I confirm because we've got a pay grade.
Right. Right.
So if you're an absolute
and
rookie,
you're the guy responsible for making sure, trying to get better pay and all that stuff. So now that's kind of your job.
Right.
Yeah.
So I look at it. So I've kind of got the scale.
Right.
But before that, I couldn't. You could have asked me. I mean, if you would have asked me 5 years ago what I made to fight a fire, I'd go like,
don't know.
I don't know. I'll get back to you tomorrow. I'll have to go look in the computer. I had, and I didn't even ask that. And, and you see that when we do interviews too. We've got some more coming up. And sometimes you can tell something about somebody when they come in and go like, well, what does it pay? And a lot of times
you're probably not doing this for the right reason.
Well, yeah, and I think a lot of the people that are in this for the right reasons, it's, it's more of a calling for them. It's like, hey, the pay is just a bonus.
Right.
I remember when I was, and I hate saying it this way, but just a firefighter, before I was an officer or any of those things, we got paid once a month. And it literally was, we take the kids out to eat. And that was my month paycheck could be gone, after we went out to eat and maybe put gas in my car.
Yep.
So you didn't get rich by it. You didn't get rich money-wise.
Right. So this is a sideline, but since we touched on this, I'll just kind of give my opinion on this. I think, and this might sound funny, but from my standpoint, from a firefighter standpoint, from a volunteer or paid on call, we say volunteer because that's what everybody knows. Mm-hmm. But from a paid on call standpoint, you hit it on the head. I think if somebody comes into this wanting to know what they make, they've missed it. They're probably not going to be the firefighter you need them to be because you're not going to get rich off in it. It's not going to be what you think it is money wise by any means. However, on the other side of that, I've always felt that the jurisdiction, whatever, like in our case, it's the village. In your case, it's a township. I've always felt like they should pay well. Just because I think that just shows an appreciation from the town, from the town's people, from that jurisdiction of, hey, we know that you guys are giving up a lot to do this.
Right.
Now again, that wouldn't stop me. I just think that it goes a long ways to show the firefighters their appreciation if they're paid decently for what they do.
Right. And there's a lot that goes into it, as you know. Yeah.
So back to the topic at hand, is it worth it? So my answer would definitely be yes, it is worth it. This isn't something I ever wanted to do. I did want to be a chaplain at one point, and that's how I got into it. And then I fell in love with the rest of it. If you've been listening to the podcast, you know my story, you know how that worked. So anyway, now I look at my life and I can't imagine my life without the fire service. So much of my life circles around the fire service now. The people I know, I just went to lunch today with a firefighter. You know, it's a constant. It's just my life now. And yes, there's days, and probably more accurately, there's nights that I question whether it's worth it.
Right. Yeah.
Especially in Michigan when it's cold and you've been out all night. But I find that even the things that most people don't want to show up for, I don't hate those things. I mean, in a sense, they're a pain, but who else is going to show up if I don't? And so there's a lot of thankless things. It seems like, storms come, middle of the night, power lines go down, trees go down, all that. Everybody wants to stay home. And where are we? We're out. And most people don't even know we're out.
Yeah, especially if power line goes down at 2:00 in the morning, it gets fixed by 4:30.
Right.
They have no clue that you've been out all night.
We've been out all night running those power lines and making sure everybody stays safe. And they don't know that. And that's fine. We didn't sign up for them to know that necessarily.
Right.
But I often remind myself, like, who else is going to do this if I don't? And so I think that's helpful. There are difficulties with that. I guess we'll kind of save that, because here's what I thought when I was thinking about this passage, counting the cost, knowing the idea is knowing what you're getting into. In this case, it's discipleship. Jesus is talking about being a follower of him, and you need to know. And we'll, at the end of the podcast, we'll talk a little bit more about that side of it. But from the fire standpoint, do you think that maybe I'm not sure if oversell is the right word, but we often don't actually tell the truth about what the fire service is. And it's not always intentional. It's not like we're lying to people, but maybe because it's normal to us and we don't think about it anymore. The good portion of the fire service is made up of really boring things.
It is.
I mean, really boring things.
Yeah.
And frustrating things.
Smoke investigation.
Yeah.
2:00 in the morning, I'm having stomach ache.
Yep.
When did it start?
Yesterday or 2 days ago.
Yeah.
In the middle of the day.
It started yesterday. Yeah. Oh, so you waited till 2:00 in the morning to
call?
Why
did you call now? Well, I just felt like I probably needed to go in.
Right.
Really?
Yep. But like you're saying, who else is going to do it?
Right.
And that's what we're here for.
Yep. Just the other day, we had a call, and you get these, a call for an illegal burn. Well, thankfully, Chief stepped up and said, I'll deal with this. It's a neighbor dispute is all it is. They're out burning garbage, and the other neighbors complaining about it because they don't get along. There's so much of that crazy stuff we get put in the middle of. We'll talk about this on another podcast, because I thought this was really interesting. The fire department is called for stuff that you would never imagine, because who else are you going to call? Some of that you're like, man, I am not trained for this. And then others, is so boring. And you're like, why am I here? What are we doing here?
Yeah, sometimes you wondered who was the original person that thought it was a good idea to have the fire department start doing this stuff.
Right. Yeah. But who else are you going to call? So the point being is, I think expectations are at a certain level because of Hollywood movies, TV shows, that kind of thing. And the reality is not that. And I wonder if we could do a better job setting the reality somehow. I don't know.
Right.
You said you've got interviews coming up. Is there a way that you can better inform them?
And we've tried, we go like, look, right. Here's, unless you're applying for the chaplain's job, then we try to keep it on the down low.
Right,
the whole intention there was to get him suckered in, and then
that worked.
And then set the hook gradually.
It worked.
You don't catch the big fish real quick. That worked out perfect. But we are trying, now to explain, like, hey, the fire academy starts in October.
Mm-hmm.
You won't be done until April. You got that kind of time. That's 2 nights a week, every other Saturday. After that, you're going to go through, EMR class, MFR class, whatever you call it. And then that's going to be, 3 months?
Yep.
So a guy's got a year before he gets any certifications, really.
Yeah.
Plus trainings, plus calls, plus all of that. So we are trying to be a whole lot more open on our end. But again, we don't necessarily always think of, hey, at 2:00 in the morning, somebody's CO alarm is going to go off and we're going to respond to it, and it's going to be a dead battery.
Right.
That's not Hollywood. Like you're saying, it's not all, going in with a ladder into the fully engulfed house and saving the family. It's not all that. It's a lot of my cat's in the tree.
Yep. Yeah.
Yay.
In fact, there's not a lot of my cats in the tree.
Right.
I got to run one of those, and I was excited because...
And I don't know how they do it in Hollywood, but man, they make that look exciting to get that cat out of the tree. But if anybody ever wants a little fun on a Friday night, go get a ladder and get a cat out of the tree.
Yeah, that's already mad.
Yeah.
Yep. Uh-huh. Yeah. Mine was a little more interesting than that.
Yeah.
Ours was, we got called for that, and we took the ladder truck. We thought, okay, I was excited. We get to get a cat out of a tree, and I realized the cat's just, I could touch the cat from where I was standing, but someone had chased it up a small tree. It lost it slipped and slid down the tree, and it got wedged. The tree had a Y in it, and it got wedged, and you could not pull it out. So again, you firefighters, right? You think out of the box. We went back, got the engine, got the spreaders, and we just spread the tree apart, pulled the cat out.
Thinking outside the box.
But it was still mad as could be.
Well, and they don't teach you that in the academy.
Right. So that's the fun of it. That's the stuff that's fun. And I often say I get a run of the boring things, the things that you're like, man, I'm tired of getting up in the middle of the night. I'm tired of this. I'm tired. And then you get where you got to cut somebody out of a car. You save somebody's life. You do something and realize, okay, this is why I signed up for it. Yes, this is worth it.
Right. And people listening to this that aren't in the fire service, it makes sense. You know what we're talking about. But like the other day, our computer predicts calls, how many calls we're going to get in a month or whatever. And I was going like, a little slow this month. We didn't meet our numbers, or aren't going to meet our numbers. And the guy goes, well, that's good, isn't it? And I'm like, yeah.
For everybody else, yeah.
For everybody, it's good. So a lot of times what we consider exciting is horrible.
Well, that's the other thing.
It's like it's like a teeter-totter. For us, a cat stuck in the Y of a tree is boring.
Yeah.
But it wasn't real traumatic for anybody. We like a good house fire. We like going to the front door and melting our helmet and going, this is crazy. But on the other hand,
somebody's losing their house.
It's horrible for somebody else. So it's not like we.
Well, that's it. One of my favorite things to do. Because I enjoy the puzzle. Right, it's just never the same. I enjoy extrication. That's my favorite thing. But that's somebody's terrible, terrible day. So we've talked about it. You got to be wired a little different. But it's just the reality too, because if you don't keep doing it, you get out of practice. And so at some point you want another house fire, you want another accident, you want, it's hard in our context we're paid on call and not full time because the call volume is much lower than in a big city. So they can't, there's not a need or can they afford to pay full timers? But that also means that some of those more major things are fewer in between, and it's harder to keep your skills sharp and be ready for those things.
Mm-hmm. And then I guess I have a hard time tying this together, how to word it right. But, when those people need us the most, it's kind of like with your faith and your religion. When a person is really, really down in the dumps, they need help.
Mm-hmm.
And it's,
right.
In a car accident, when you're pinned in on the roof, you call 911 and we come and help.
Right.
But in the other times of your life, when life is that rough, you're pinned in, you see no way out, you've got to have faith to depend on. And that's kind of, a tie into the two of them, if you want to say it that way.
Exactly.
But, right. And we can't do anything. I mean, like you're saying, that puzzle is all, you're working the tool and God's using you as his tool. And
right.
So, right.
So let me get a little more specific here. We both said that it's worth it. Why would you say it's worth it? Now let's shift our thinking. Let's say somebody's listening to this and they're thinking, okay, I'm trying to find a way to be involved in my community. Should I do this? Should I become a volunteer paid on call firefighter? These guys say it's worth it. And it sounds like it can be really boring or really exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you say it's worth it? What makes it so worth it?
I don't know if it's selfish, but if you feel like you got to change somebody's life or help them.
Yeah.
Today I ran a call on a lady having some chest pains. Got there, she was feeling better. EKG was normal. She ended up wanting to go and got to talking with her husband. He's a Christian, and you just know that they were having a bad enough day to call 911, and we show up, so that helps.
Right.
They're like, okay, thank God there's help.
Somebody here. Yeah.
Kind of deal. So that even though I'm sure that she was okay, I don't know how it is with you, but unfortunately, when the patient gets in the back of the ambulance, if we have to drive to the ambulance or ride in the back, we don't know what happened to the patient.
Right.
And they seldom ever come back to the station and tell you.
Right. Yeah.
So it's unfortunate you don't get to know a lot of whether you made a big difference or not. But in that case, that you've done something. That family.
Right. Yep.
Right? So it gives you, and that's where it falls back to not necessarily do you even care if you got paid.
Right.
Making a difference in somebody's life and seeing that they're happy that you helped them in a bad day. If it's not just a job, like some people say it is, then that's your reward.
I have, to your point, I've had very few people come back to the station and thank us afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
The ones that have, they're pretty stuck in my mind, the whole call, because that kind of reinforces what happened.
Right.
And that's if you've had a firefighter help you, go back to the station and tell them thank you. That goes a long ways for there might be some that are like, nope, I don't want that, but it goes a long ways because we don't know the impact we've had. Sometimes I think it's good because we put a lot of work into saving a life, and then there's times that person still doesn't make it. But we don't know that. And so sometimes I think it's easier to not know that.
Mm-hmm.
We keep getting a little derailed from what we're talking about here, but so that's it. The impacting somebody's life. We've talked about it before on here, being there for someone on their worst day. And there are times that I walk in and they're so glad to see me. And I'm like, not really doing anything. They're okay. But that's okay. I don't say that to them because our presence just brings a certain peace.
Mm-hmm.
I remember an accident that I was on with you years ago. You were in the back of the car, I think, holding C-spine. This lady was pretty messed up, and you talked to her talked her all through it. And she was mad that you could not get on the helicopter and fly on the helicopter with her. I remember her screaming at you.
I wondered if that was the call. She was mad that the flight doctor was going to get in the helicopter, not me. And I'm like, oh, honey, don't get me in trouble.
But the point is, you were there, and that showed the bond, right? Mm-hmm. That you weren't just there providing medical care; you were providing emotional care.
There was a lot of that,
and that's where the reward, when you realize we've been able to help somebody. Mm-hmm. It is worth it. It's a lot of work, and there's a lot of times that it's thankless. But what helps me, so why I would say it's worth it is several reasons. The selfish thing is, there's times it just kind of makes you feel good. Mm-hmm. But I think it's more than that. Scripture says that we're to love our neighbor as ourselves. And I even have a plaque in my office that talks about that. It says the call, right? We're told to love our neighbor as ourselves. So I answer the call to be a firefighter. Right. And that's one of the reasons I love being a firefighter in my community, because I am directly able to serve my community, and it's worth it. It doesn't always, you don't always see what it means to them, but it means something to them. Right. And so that's helpful. I'm able to literally, very physically, tangibly obey God's command to love my neighbor as myself, because the night my house is burning down, or the night I need to call 911, I want somebody there. Right. And so I can be that somebody. And it is very worth it. And then all of the other little things that we don't always get to think about. A couple days ago, we both were involved in this. There was a fallen Marine, died in a helicopter crash out in California. He's from Michigan. They brought him home and then traveled up the highway to go to northern Michigan. So therefore he traveled through your jurisdiction, traveled through our jurisdiction, and you were able to bring a fire truck out and park it on the overpass as the procession went through. It was they had state police with the hearse and everything. And we actually had up here, we had one of our wreckers come, one of the big rotators came. They brought a massive flag. We put the ladder up. We hung this big flag up over the highway, and there was people that showed up. There was 2 or 3 vehicles that showed up while we're waiting, and they got out with flags. They heard what was happening, and they just wanted to honor this Marine. And the people who honked their horns on the way by while we were waiting, the people who stopped, and then they had tears in their eyes and thanked us for taking time out of our day. It wasn't just for that family of the fallen Marine, but it was for the rest of the community. They saw, and those are the things that make it worth it. It was, right. I was thankful that I was able to take time out of my day and do that. And we say it a lot, but it's true. You're a part of something much bigger than yourself. And that's just, it makes it well worth it. And then when you can also then tie in your faith and use it as a ministry to be a part of the fire department. So we could also say, has it been worth it? Well, you and I would say me being a part of the fire department was 1,000,000 times over worth it, because you wouldn't be where you are today. And it's only by God's grace that he used me to be a part of your life.
Right.
So as a Christian, and you're saying, should I do this? Well, don't go into it just thinking about the firefighting side of it. Go into it thinking about the other opportunities God will give you for ministry.
Right.
Which is what you talk about all the time too.
Right. Yeah. It gives you lots of, and that was one of the reasons I felt that being the chief would be a big help, because if somebody needed help or I had that opportunity, I would try to counsel them, disciple them, if that's what you want to call it. So,
and there's been times on scene that somebody will say, hey, we got a pastor here. Would you like him to pray for you right now? And I'll just stop and pray. Or, as the chaplain, that would happen a lot too, but I'm not the chaplain here, but it doesn't matter. I still get those opportunities. So it's very well worth it. So now let's talk about this real quick. We're running out of time, and sorry, you guys, I'm sure can hear the kids singing by now. But just this thought, I wonder, do we undersell our commitment what's expected out of salvation. Jesus' point here is, if we read the rest of this, or the beginning of this that I read earlier, he says that we are to give up all of our life to follow him. And then that's when he says, you need to count the cost. Mm-hmm. Often we're quick to try to get somebody to pray a prayer, and we just talk about how the good things, it's all good. But what we don't talk about is the responsibility and the commitment that comes to God through salvation. There's so much more to it. Just like in firefighting, right? Well, yeah, I want to do the cool stuff. Well, as a Christian, yeah, I want to go to heaven. I want to be with Jesus. I don't want to go to hell. I'll pray this prayer. I'll sign up in a sense.
But you got to put in the work.
But you got to, right now I have a responsibility because I've received this gift. And I have a responsibility. Just like we find people are like, this isn't, And what happens? A lot of people that sign up to be firefighters, we don't see them much.
Right.
And it's the same in the Christian life. And I think we undersell it. In the Christian life, we kind of say, hey, just, it'll be all right, Yeah,
just come to church on Sunday. Everything else will be all right,
Instead of realizing exactly what the cost is and what we should be doing our own selves. And then hopefully others see that. And when they receive Christ, when they get saved, they become a part of the church. It's just natural because that's what everybody else is doing.
Right.
All right. Well, that was supposed to be an easy conversation that took us down several roads, but I think that's the way most of our podcasts go.
Yeah, a lot of rabbit holes in our journey.
Hey guys, let us know if you're enjoying our topics. Let us know. I hope our goal always has been twofold. If you're a firefighter, we want to encourage you in the Lord. We want to be able to help you think through that in a biblical way, to be able to be a better, really a more healthy firefighter, because our relationship with God helps us deal with everything we walk through. But also, if you're not a firefighter, we want to give you a glimpse in that world and help you understand us better, or understand those in your community better. So thank you for listening. And if there's questions that you have, or thoughts that you have, or if you're just enjoying these episodes, have a certain episode you'd love us to do, put it in the comments. We are on pretty much every podcast there is, so you can listen anywhere. But we're also on YouTube. Faith Forged and Fire finds it everywhere. If you're on YouTube, you can leave a comment, and we'd love to hear what you have. We'd love suggestions. Yeah,
we need them. Next episode will be nothing but rabbit holes.
Right. I got lots of ideas, but we'd love to hear from you guys. So anyways, thanks so much for listening and being a part of the podcast.
We'll see you next week.
Yeah. Are we willing to make that commitment?
Sure.
See you next week.